we're gonna do a little celebratory shot here. But
Okay.
welcome to another episode. Oh wait. Welcome to another episode of Go. No, that's Irish. Of With Your Palate. No, that's Irish.
He's trying to do a Boston accent.
Rhonda Kallman. No.
Yeah?
Kallman.
Kallman.
Boston. Boston. Kallman. But I'm using
Kallman.
my Boston accent is garbage. Okay.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Let me do a California one.
Yeah, wait, you can do a California.
Flowers and butterflies.
Is it Cal?
Flowers and butterflies. That's
how they see us.
California.
Okay.
We gotta go.
I'm gonna take it from the top again.
Okay, yeah, please.
I can't obviously do a Boston accent.
Everyone's gonna see this thing.
Okay.
Wet your palate. You've been
Welcome to another short segment of Wet Your Palate. You got me, Joe Wagner, and my co-host, Fat Mario Rubio. And we got a special guest today, Rhonda Kallman.
Yeah.
Okay, without the Boston accent. She is from Boston. She can do a Boston accent, and it's wicked. But wicked good. She's from Boston Harbor Distillery, and she's got a great life story about everywhere she's gone and what she's done. And she brought some great spirits. Let's cheers to that.
I love the pre-segment, which was at your winery. I loved everything about that.
Yeah.
That was fun.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. And all of your brands, being Bell Gloss, like the first time I ever had it was in Las Vegas with one of my investors of my old beer company. And he bought this bottle of Bell Gloss. He was so excited about it. And I drank it and I thought, this was the best thing that I've ever drank. And I loved it ever since. And what you've done with that brand is remarkable.
Thank you very much. Well,
Wait, I can go on and on because we went through the whole thing, and the wax and all of the stuff that you guys do there is the real deal. And you've inspired me today.
Thank you.
No, honestly, like what you do there is amazing. It's a big undertaking, and you do it with aplomb. So congratulations to you.
Well, thank you. I cannot wait to get out there and see your operation where we got to taste quite a few of the things. I mean, this Demon Seed is something that is maybe one of the most fun spirits I've tried. And so if you guys want to hear about how it's made, and if you've never heard of it and you want to try it, get out there and buy some. It's spicy, yet savory, and very sultry and sexy right on the finish.
Oh, see?
Yay!
Yeah.
I mean, you guys stay tuned. Obviously, there was a lot of shots taken. You could tell by Joe's.
What are you talking
Hey,
Hey,
about?
we still have 5 empty glasses here.
It's gonna get wet right
Time
now.
to get to work.
Get the guys up. Come on, dog. Get in here, dog.
Let's do this, boys.
But please
We're out.
You guys stay tuned. Rhonda's origin story is amazing. It's gonna be awesome.
Thank you for having me. I really enjoyed this. This is the highlight of my career. Thank
No.
you.
Thank you.
Rhonda Kallman.
It's funny. I never have eaten at Costco, and so I went on a date last night to Costco. We got a new
Oh,
Costco,
your
was
wife
date
is
night.
so lucky.
which is I know she's so lucky. Cheapest date I've ever been on in my life.
He's such a romantic.
$6. I got her a soda. Yeah.
You made her meet you in the vineyards, right? First.
Yeah. She met me in the vineyards, and then I was like, "Hey, we're gonna go to Costco and check out the new Costco." It's the talk of the town in Napa right now. So it's
Their margins in the restaurant business are very, very slim.
yeah, and the customer blames the restaurants, not the policy.
$49 steak if you're lucky.
Yeah.
It's usually like 65.
Yeah, I mean, around
And-
here you're looking at even more than that.
Yeah.
And just for a regular kind of, not a Michelin star restaurant, you're just going to a regular restaurant,
Yeah.
not even a nice steakhouse. And you're looking at $75-$80 for a steak.
Yeah.
Just
And
getting like a
then,
hanger steak and frites.
Yeah.
You're gonna be still charged an arm and a leg.
And then they're having one drink instead of multiple. That's the thing that kills me.
That kills all of us.
I know.
Well,
and
yeah,
it kills the bars and
yeah.
restaurants too,
Yeah.
because that's really where they're. I'm trying to teach them all. I know the chefs. So much goes into the food, and it's important.
Yeah.
The money is made in the alcohol.
That is true. And it unfortunately I don't know what I mean, I hope policy changes. I hope it's more pro business. I think it's more pro consolidation right now. And I've been touting this for a while. It's like, what is the objective here? And I don't know if we're rolling yet, but
No,
we're gonna go ahead and talk.
rolling. So
Okay.
I'm like, wait for that.
So
Let's get it more upbeat.
That's
before
what-
we come-
Oh,
no.
all right. Well,
Then
No.
we can do that.
We're gonna take it down before we bring it up. So
I like it. I like it.
as far as I'm
following your
concerned,
lead, Joe.
the podcast hasn't started yet, but you guys can go ahead and use this if you want. So
like ours is loud.
Gee, thanks.
no, so it really is like the way that I see it is the objective of our government is to simplify their collections, right? So if they're
About the taxes.
if they're putting policy into place where they only have to go to, let's simplify it and say 10 businesses, so your Amazons and your Googles and whatever, your massive organizations that are driving a whole bunch of revenue and taxable income, then you're going to be more efficient in your operations, right? Rather than going to 100,000 independent operators. And that trickles down to us, to you, to anybody who's, doing something that's genuine and really, craft driven and hands-on, and you want to provide a product that tells a story and you want to get people excited about it. And the large organizations, I mean, you could I'll single out, Constellation as an example. They don't really have a soul.
Yeah, welcome.
So
No censorship.
well, no, they're
Welcome to being baptized.
they are a publicly traded company. It's how they operate. It's what they've done forever. It's about cutting costs. It's about operational efficiencies and putting a product out there that's got a good name and that's going to drive volume and revenue.
Sure.
At the end of the day, what excitement does that bring to the community, the consumer out there? It doesn't bring any excitement because they're not telling the stories. They don't even have the stories. They have the remnants of a story of how that brand started, and they're trying to convey that until that brand is now discounted to $4.99 at every drugstore and 7-Eleven, and then they sell the remnants of it and then move on to the next thing and show growth in that next thing. And it's just a vicious cycle. But
Yeah.
I have contributed to that cycle in the past with one of the brands that I sold. And it's really interesting to see firsthand where it was and where it's gone now. And I don't regret the decision, but at the same time, you see that it is a systemic issue that really is derived from publicly traded companies not really doing well in businesses that rely upon something that fluctuates as greatly in our world as wine and
Sure.
the cost of goods that go into it. It's like, wow, we had a banner year last year. Well, it's because you had a bumper crop the year before, and then you put all that product on the market, and your cost per gallon was way lower, and et cetera, and now you had a 30% decrease in crop, and now you're like, what happened to the money we were making last year? Well, Mother Nature didn't work out so well.
It's tough.
They don't understand that. The shareholders don't understand it, and the last thing you want is to have a volatile stock. So they make decisions that are not good for, I think, themselves in the long term, but more importantly for the industry as a whole.
Well, absolutely. It's a broken model. Quarterly, we need more than a quarter.
Yeah.
We do, just to get things jump-started and up and running. I
Yeah.
mean, it's a long lead time in the alcohol business.
A long lead time in alcohol. It's like the same thing as saying, like, maybe we should consider term limits and maybe extending terms to our elected officials.
Oh, absolutely.
Well, I mean, really, if you think about it,
5 minutes earlier, we're not going to get political.
we're not. We're not.
Okay.
But
We're not- go for it, dude.
honestly, I gotta say, what can you get done? Because I do think that alcohol, especially when you're in the spirits world, if you're doing brown spirits, you need more than 2 years. You need more than 4 years.
you need 4+.
And so
minimum.
to have a strategy and a plan and execute upon that, you're going to need time. And it's the same in politics. You can create the beginnings of a plan, but executing on that plan in 4 years, like. Good luck. Maybe make it 6 to actually see what the ramifications are, and then make a decision, and then put a cap on maybe 2 terms.
Well, it's like age statements. My 90-year-old mother always said, age is just a number. We're from Boston. She was 90 when she would say that. But it's, McAllen 18. So somebody 20 years before had to know what was going to happen. 20 years. I mean, come on. They're not Nostradamus.
Yeah.
Impossible.
Yeah.
It's a broken model. It's a broken model for the small brands, which I've been fighting for forever, my whole career, 4+ decades.
Yeah.
And it's just awful to watch what's happening. And now with the consolidation going on at the distributor level, the 3-tier system is really, really hurting us.
It really is.
They're supposed, they mean to help. They're nice people. Everybody's good people, but they can only do so much.
They've got too many brands that they're working with
That's true.
and focusing on. And if you're not, extremely relevant, they don't pay all that much mind. And that's one of the issues. And we're like, I think, a decent size for a winery. We're still, in the grand scheme of things, very small.
Yeah.
We bring more cachet than we do dollars. I mean, per case, yeah, we bring a lot of dollars. But then when you don't have the volume of, millions of cases, they're gonna realize like, oh yeah, it's not filling the trucks, and at the end of the day, they want to fill the trucks.
Absolutely.
So yeah, there's a lot of brokenness in the system, but it puts the onus on us as like the independents, I think, to get out there. And I learned years ago, and it really sucks to say this, and I'm sure there's going to be distributors listening.
Hi.
That you should only hold the distributors accountable for distributing your product. And I don't like that philosophy because they do employ a sales force.
Yes.
And that sales force shouldn't be just about taking orders. It should be about going in there, selling new products, keeping it exciting, helping them form a list that's going to give a benefit to the customer, or shelf placements, whatever it is. And so they've kind of like, a lot of them have lost sight of that it's just, no, I've got a contract with this supplier and I've got to get this done by the end of the month. If I don't meet my quota, then I get a penalty, et cetera, et cetera. And that really de-emphasizes everything else that's in incubation or at a low to mid volume. So
There should be an emerging brands, collective or something that works. There is in the beer business finally, but they're going out of business today. That's the hard part. Like, it's not sustainable, but small brands need a different model.
yeah,
Unfortunately, I mean, for the distributors, they're my customers. They're my number one customers. They buy from me and they send me a check,
yeah,
and it sits in their warehouse until we sell it,
yep.
or they help us sell it sometimes. I mean, I got to give them credit for that, but they can't do what we need done.
They can't do it all.
So we have to put feet on the street, and that's a real hard investment.
It is. And how to make it work and how to service those accounts. And I mean, over and over and over again. And it takes people and time. And that is...
And money.
Yeah. And that equates to money.
Exactly. It's that runway. I feel like I built the plane once again. I've been doing this a long time, and it's on the runway. I just need some fuel. Right there. Stick it right in.
We got a lot of fuel here.
We got some fuel.
You brought your own fuel.
I know. Can
Right
we fuel
there.
up the jet with this?
Yeah.
I think
Whiskey
it's
on the table.
I think it's a good time to just go into the origin story, because like how you've been in the beverage alcohol, I hate using that word, but the beverage alcohol business for a long time. Like, what was your beginnings?
Well, I was a bartender and a waitress. I was drinking whiskey when I was a little girl. My grandparents used to drink whiskey. They were from Eastern Europe. My father used to drink whiskey, and if you wanted to steal your father's booze, you were drinking whiskey. And that's how I, got introduced to it, and I loved it. I was smitten. I mean, it wasn't, the result of it. I just loved the flavors of it, the complexity of it. In this little glass, my grandfather, his hands would shake. He had arthritis. He's an old school, old world. And he would be like, oh, this is so good. Like, he loved it. And I learned from him. I learned that from him, that it was really about the complexity of what was in that glass. So that's how I really ended up enjoying alcohol. So at 15, back in the day, I could work in a bar and restaurant. And I was a waitress, and then they promoted me to a bartender. It was exciting. I loved it. I loved the camaraderie, and I loved the whole thing about it. Jim Cook always said, bars are my natural habitat.
Yeah.
I just love being around that. I still do. Like, that is my relaxation, like being part of that, the hospitality industry, and it's very difficult. I don't have to tell you.
The hospitality industry is God, it is. You have so many things coming at you, so many fires to put out, and no matter how big or how small, they all need to be dealt with.
They do. Particularly, to make sure it all works for the end user, if you will. And it's complex, but that's the challenge. And, I really enjoyed my time with Boston Beer Company and helped start that business. because we were doing something different than the big guys were doing, and finding those cracks is kind of fun.
And that was really a homegrown effort with Sam Adams at the lead.
And I want to say too, just like in case if you're listening, like we have Rhonda Kallman here because I don't want people listening to be like, oh, this sounds like a magnificent woman, but I want to make sure like she is magnificent. But yes, and so she's from Boston Harbor Distillery, founder and CEO. And I just want to jump into. Sorry.
Yeah, thank you, because I totally forgot to do the intro. So yeah, welcome to Go With Your Palate. We have our special guest today.
Did you already start drinking? You got into the whiskey at all?
No.
We had a little bit of wine.
Some wine.
Dude,
There's me in the barrels right there. You got your barrels. I don't know why they're upright because they're all laying down now on the side, but that was good.
Yeah. I love that.
I've always been asked about why, why because we do the same thing in our little distillery, that we age them on their, like wine barrels, right? On their side.
Yeah.
So what is the preference for you?
Well, it depends where the bunghole is.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I like on their side. I think that it gives it more, I don't know, it's just like laying down, you're getting more of the same, like water, whiskey, wood velocity, if you will, right?
More rotation. I mean, the vertical stacking is obviously, from a space perspective, more efficient. Have you seen those like rum warehouses?
Well, we were talking about the wedges. That's the only one I've seen.
Oh,
what happens in rum?
Like the big rum where they don't even like use pallets. Like it's just barrels, like just crammed in, like 6 high, all vertical, into a warehouse. Like no temperature control, right? It's just like in the Caribbean, and I cannot believe how much alcohol they can store in there, and it's wild. But
I wonder what they're losing to the angel share.
I think it's a lot, but I think it's so coarsely and cheaply produced, and they're relying upon the age to help soften it out. But there's no sampling. Like you're not able to go and check those barrels. It's like, I need you to pull these 2,000 barrels out by hand.
Oh, there it is.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay, Art just brought up a visual.
Yes, that's cool.
Out there to the elements.
We can talk about that too. It makes me even think about the barrels under the sea. And we've talked about that in like
Is Rhonda
how do they get bonded?
Is Rhonda calling bullshit on this one? Yeah, I would too. That's bullshit.
Yeah, just
okay. All right.
Have you tried to toss any barrels or bottles in Boston Harbor?
I haven't yet.
Yeah.
Because I follow the rules.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean,
we're not putting our shit in the Napa River.
I
don't want to put it in the Napa River.
I don't know. I don't get it, but I would. It sounds fun. Like I love boats and I love whiskey.
Yeah,
and barrels on boats. So maybe
I do.
Let's try it.
I do like some of those stories. I mean, you could see how consumers just get wrapped up in some of those stories about like making the voyage from one place to another and the hull of a ship, and we all have this vision of like, oh my god, it must be this old pirate ship going.
Yeah, Pirates of the Caribbean.
Like,
my ass.
It's like
that's the thing. That's what it was.
It's a fucking Maersk like huge ocean liner, just like
yeah. Exactly.
They did a lap.
And how is that bonded? Let's go back to that because it's all
point.
about the government and taxes. That's all they care about.
But once you get offshore, I had a concept for a winery that would be offshore on a barge. I thought, oh, you could do that, but then you have the issue. Then you're importing the wine into the U.S.
Okay.
But I loved the idea. I was like, screw all the government regulation.
So get a wholesaler permit. Is that a big deal?
Well,
for a barge? I don't know.
I think the problem is also the barge out in the middle of the ocean.
Well, so somebody in Mississippi was doing this.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah. They actually had to make this whole canopy because they were worried about lightning strikes.
On a barge?
On a barge.
Okay.
In the Mississippi.
Were they doing spirits?
I think they're doing bourbon. Yeah. I forget the name of the company. I'm sorry, whoever you are.
That's wild. That's a wild story.
It is. And I thought, oh my God, I'm literally on the ocean. My distillery is on the southernmost waterfront in Boston Harbor.
That's got to be beautiful.
It's beautiful.
So is that considered part of Southie?
No.
No. Are you south of Southie?
I'm south of Southie.
Okay.
Dorchester.
Dorchester. All right.
Mark
He's
Wahlberg.
accents. He's gonna start doing Boston. Are you?
I'm not going.
Okay.
I can't do that. I will embarrass myself without it. I barely even
Oh,
practiced
please
it.
do.
Oh, he does.
I've been
Come on.
I've been wanting, like last night.
What, you did
Rarely
your
watch
German
TV.
one?
I was about to turn on The Departed.
The Departed. You wanted to get into the Boston mode. Is that it?
I like that. Oh, it's such a
Feeling-
good movie, though.
It is
Oh,
such
yeah.
a good movie.
It's-
Yeah, we have
That's
some
timeless.
dark stuff going on over there. So actually, my barrel room is an old freezer. So if I can just go into that for a second. So Boston Harbor Distillery is located on the southernmost waterfront of Boston Harbor.
Okay.
And it's an 18-acre parcel that was built by the Putnam family,
Okay.
Putnam investment lineage. There it is. Oh, there it is.
Yeah.
Ah,
Look at that brick, too.
homesick.
That is beautiful. Is that so? That's an original building.
Oh, yeah, 1859.
Oh my God. Yeah, we don't have that kind of history in California.
That's me doing a tour. That's it.
Oh, that's you right there.
Yep, that's
And are
it.
those are your pot stills there?
Those are my little stills, Vendome. So, each piece of equipment that's used to make alcohol has to have a registered serial number. And that was my first still, that little one. It was the Econo model. And it was built by Vendome in Louisville. And the pot is the TTB 1776.
So fitting.
And it's 1776
Yeah.
ended up right there in Boston, which is really, really cool.
So can I?
It is
Did
so
you
fitting.
plan on that? Or
I did not plan on that.
You just happened to receive it, and the
I
serial number
happened
was
to receive it.
1776.
I'll be real honest. So the condenser, the worm as they call it, the
Yeah.
little pipe on the left, that was 1776 and the pot was 1775. And I said to Van, can you just switch that for me?
Yeah.
And they did, because I wanted to see that eye level. And,
Oh, wow.
and I do, and I love that. And I just knew that it was meant to be.
That is
this
meant
is
to
a
be.
I mean, you can actually see out the windows of the distillery. You see the ocean right there.
Oh, yeah.
And across is the JFK Library and the Edward Kennedy Senate thing and UMass Boston. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. I get to see all of Boston, but it was supposed to be developed 10 years ago. So I would probably prefer some asses in the seats instead of my view. But for now, I've got the view.
So can you look forward to them continuing to develop down there? Because I mean they've redone Southie to right. I mean that.
Oh, Southie, yeah, Eastie, everywhere. This is the last privately held parcel of land on Boston Harbor.
Okay.
And no, it's a mess. It's a mess. It's a shit show.
Oh, it'll come around.
It's
Do you think the pandemic screwed it up?
Oh my gosh.
Was that it? Was
Pandemic, really hit us hard. Really. I mean, my sister always says, Ron, everybody had the pandemic. I'm like, yeah, I know, but you don't understand. Like, we were closed for 5 months.
Yeah, you guys got crushed.
We got crushed. You didn't up here?
We got crushed, but we were enough out of the city. If you go to San Francisco or LA and everybody was militant about following the rules. Around here, people were just kind of meh, whatever.
Well,
And
they were there in Boston, too.
Yeah.
And we also have the weather here, which the government allowed all these wineries and restaurants that would never allow outdoor seating to do outdoor seating, and so all of a sudden you had all these tents up and you had this outdoor space, and it really elevated the experience.
Sure.
I mean, there's one restaurant in Napa, Don Giovanni, which I always recommend. Great Italian food, and they were, I'm going to say maybe 150 seat restaurant, and then they had this beautiful garden outside, massive garden,
yeah.
and so they were allowed to use that, and they were allowed to keep it. And so now they have these shade structures, and 9 months out of the year, you can use them no problem here in Napa. And I bet you it's a 450, 500 seat restaurant now. And they're just cranking through,
That's
still great. And
amazing.
so it's all right, good for them. They crushed it, and hopefully the local government sees you can allow these things to happen, and it benefits the customer experience.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
For sure.
And speaking of crushing it, we were still able to crush it ourselves, through the agriculture, and still have harvest and crush.
Oh, that's
grapes
right.
and,
Yeah,
you know
so
what I mean?
we were
Yeah, we were.
essential. So you were essential, but
Yeah, we were
the
essential.
tourism piece of it was
Well,
And also bars.
77% of my business is restaurants.
Got it.
And
Ah.
that's my orientation.
Yeah.
I love being in that environment.
Yeah.
No offense to the retailers, I love you too. But, people were going in, grabbing a handle of whatever that they drank, and, they weren't shopping. So it was really an on-premise thing for us. And everybody shut down. And then coming back out of it, though, it was just a mess.
Yeah.
Finding employees, it's a lot. It's just a lot going on, and we're just starting to come out of it. which is nice. I mean,
you feel like you're still encumbered by this.
I do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do. The hangover from it, because if you don't have the capital,
Yeah.
you have to start over again.
Yeah.
That's been the hard part, the hard hole. But this is what we've got. Like, people are enjoying it.
It is beautiful. Okay, so you were talking about the Putnam family. So let's talk a little bit about the history, because I love the history on the East Coast. Can we?
Yeah. Oh, please. You kidding? I brought cups, and I importantly brought the bottle.
I see Art and Chad's mouths watering.
You guys can come.
Is he coming inside?
Sorry, boys.
I don't think they've ever come inside.
They've never broke down the door.
Oh, break it
Is
down.
he coming down? I don't know. He left the room.
I love that
Right.
sound.
So I see you're going amalgamated. We're going to go amalgamated.
I did, because I was getting corked. I was getting fucking corked.
We're so.
I was so pissed. Like, that shouldn't happen to whiskey.
So
Corked.
our cork supplier, same guys.
The best. They're the best in the world.
They are the best.
Yeah, I've seen what they do. They're very concerned about TCH and all that.
And so they created a system, and they continue to elevate that system.
Yeah.
They call it ND Tech.
Yep.
And it's like 99.1 or something percent, like coming from like a, at one time over 10% TCA issue in the cork industry. So they've been able to eradicate this to a large degree, but they've not perfected it. And so I went to them and I was like, it's a natural resin, right? So everything about this is natural, this amalgamated cork.
Totally.
And it's very efficient, and it is TCA free. So we're moving all of our production over to that as well.
Yeah.
So
I mean,
I'm glad
it's much
to see
better
you
than
made that
screw
move.
top, But I learned so much about cork going there. I didn't even know how cork was made. For anybody listening that doesn't know, it's unbelievable. The trees take 19 years to grow their bark.
Yeah.
So then they harvest the bark without ruining the tree.
Mm-hmm.
And then they, turn the bark on the side, and there's all this cork on top of the bark, and they punch it out. And, but
I mean, there's so much handwork that is done. It is insane how, what they've, I mean, the technology is definitely there, but it's still like, these guys are still hand punching.
Absolutely.
So they've got this like string of bark, and it's just,
Yeah.
It's
wild.
Yeah, it's wild. Cheers. Okay, so we're
drinking Putnam American Single Malt.
Putnam American Single Malt, and the this was from what is your choice of single malts?
So you mean the malt
that
we're using?
Yep.
So I'm using Briess malts.
Okay.
So Briess I used in the beer business, because that's my background. I've been at this 40 years, and I started with beer, which, ironically, the process for whiskey starts off as the process for beer.
Yeah.
So I've come full circle, because I've always loved whiskey. When I helped Jim Cook start Sam Adams 40 plus years ago, oh my gosh. And when he asked me to help him start a company, I said, Jim, I don't drink beer, I drink whiskey. And he promised he would make something that I would like, and of course he did. So I spent 15 years helping him make that a household name, and went off on other projects. But what led me to whiskey is my love for whiskey, and the same white space that Jim saw for good quality craft beer in Boston in the 80s. I saw that for whiskey in 2011 actually. And so Putnam family built my building, this beautiful historic building on the southernmost waterfront of Boston. This was their label. These two, they made horseshoe nails.
Okay.
And this was their logo. General Israel Putnam, a Revolutionary War hero, was their logo. So I just put that on mine. Anyway, and I wondered how I was going to get horses and whiskey, which is really an imagery that's inextricably linked to whiskey. And I thought, we don't have any horses in Boston. We have some horses' asses, but we don't have many horses.
You used to have a lot of horses there, but yeah.
So anyway, I put that on the label, just as, Sam Adams and Miller and Coors and Heineken. They're all guys' names that were, and Edison, which was a beer company that I had at one point. But this was the first whiskey we ever made. It's 100% malted barley.
Yep.
And 80% is a caramel malt. Delicious. And the best growing region in America is northern Idaho, southern Montana.
Okay.
And I was supposed to be there And then the pandemic happened, so I still have to get back out there and see those barley fields.
And that's where this is all coming from.
That's where it's coming from. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Briess, B-R-E-I-S-S, Briess Malt. Same place that we used for beer. And though 20% or less, but 17% is a roasted malt. You smell that?
Yeah, it's very
chocolate, coffee, toffee finish because the mash bill was inspired by America's oldest chocolatier. It was the Walter Baker Chocolate Factory, which was down the street in Dorchester.
It's very smooth. It's very rich. Almost has a creaminess, or like that chocolatey, like that that oiliness of like dark chocolate in a good way. Like I like that a lot. But I also get the sweetness of that caramel.
This is probably 3.5 years old. Honestly, it would benefit from a little bit more time. You don't need 12 years, but you need a little bit more time for it.
Okay.
I think time gives it some body. But I do love the flavors. And we bottle it at 86 proof. We used to bottle it. We do have a bottled in bond, which is 4-year-old minimum, and bottled at 100 proof. But that was a lot, But I love the way this drinks. It makes it great.
And you are the distiller.
I am not the distiller.
Okay, so you have a
no,
you have a
I don't want to
master
blow
distiller.
up the place. I didn't even want to deal with the bazooka today that we
Yeah.
did with the wine thing. I'm like, I didn't want to. I did it. I did the bazooka,
Okay,
but I was just had visions of me spraying the whole freaking place with it, like the thing going off.
It's happened before. That's why I stand so close now. Where it's like you never know what's going to happen. But when that pressure goes off and you got that 3-foot piece of stainless steel pipe, like the last thing you want to do is have it hit somebody, knock them off of a catwalk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, a lot of people too want to like pull like a Charlie in the Chocolate Factory and think like, oh wow, it'd be so cool to jump in there, and then you have to explain to them that they probably wouldn't survive.
No, it's like,
Right, yeah.
yeah, I think in the beer world it's the same, right? You cannot jump in a fermenter.
No,
Yeah,
CO2.
yeah.
Methane.
Yeah,
No
it's not.
air, no
It's
air.
not good for you.
So,
That's
but
what I've heard.
I'm not the distiller, and even in the beer business, I wasn't the brewer, but I know enough to be dangerous.
Yeah.
But I hired, my very first hire for Boston Harbor Distillery was the world's expert on whiskey maturation. And his name was Dr. James Swan.
Okay.
And he was a Scottish guy who actually worked for Arthur Andersen, the accounting firm. Way back when he was young, you tell him the story, when he was a young man in Scotland, they sent him to the bowels of all these distilleries to figure out how do you value what's in those barrels. I call it liquid gold, actually.
Yeah.
It's so good. So he had to learn everything about maturation. So he was the first guy that I hired. And then I was at an ADI, American Distilling Institute conference, and I was in search of a distiller, like a guy that was going to do all the, and we're doing a tasting. We're like, chin to chin here. And I'm like, hey, how you doing? You know anybody who might want to be a distiller? He's like, maybe. And it turns out this guy, John Couchot, who's from Paradise, California.
Wow.
Yep. And he worked for Sierra Nevada. And he actually helped Jack Joyce from Rogue in Oregon.
Rogue Brewing.
Rogue Brewing, but John was involved with Jack, and they started their spirit division.
Okay.
And they turned Dead Guy Ale into Dead Guy Whiskey.
Uh-huh.
So John has been at the forefront of this. He's still my master distiller, but he lives in Minnesota now. He's working for an Indian reservation, making more stuff. But he's there when I need him because he's formulated most of this stuff. So I moved him to Boston, and he's a remarkable guy. Like, he knows what he's doing.
And this all started around like 2012.
2012.
Yeah.
Yep.
And
I opened the doors in 2015. So it took 3 years to kind of build the plan and raise some capital and get the equipment, figure it all out.
First distillate came off the still in 2015?
2015, and this was the very
This was the very first one. Okay.
It was New England single malt, which I wanted to establish a terroir for New England.
Yeah.
And the chocolate and all that was very different. However, since I started, there's been this coalition of American Craft Spirits Association. There's about 100 small distilleries that are involved that are trying to make single malt a category. Can you believe that the federal government doesn't recognize single malt as an American category. So it's finding innovation in a business that's been around since the 1300s.
Yeah. Can I imagine it? Yeah, it's the federal government. But is it warranted? Absolutely not. I mean, it's so did you try, I don't even know if I should talk about this, but did you try to put American single malt on your label and get it kicked back to you by TTB?
No, I put New England single malt.
Okay.
I didn't get it kicked back, but I had to change New England to American if I wanted to be part of the group.
Oh, I see.
You know,
Okay,
and
yeah.
I'm usually like anti-group stuff.
Yeah.
No offense to anybody, but I've gotten my ass kicked so many times. Being on my own, I'm like, all right, grow up, Rhonda, be part of the group for some things.
Yeah, some things, but then
Some things.
but then at some point it becomes a hindrance, I think, usually.
Well, it's like, how do you stand out? Like, but that's what's in the bottle will make it happen.
Yeah.
And I'm really proud of it, and I love it. It's just very small quantity.
Yeah.
People don't even know. They walk through my doors and like, oh, you guys make scotch here? Like there is no
There's no education on it.
and there wasn't for beer 40 years ago.
Yeah,
You
so
know?
when
Yeah.
you've done this before, you went
Yeah.
up against a consolidated, very narrow, like you had a handful of major beer companies and then a bunch of malt-based, fake beers. And then you came out with, a really America's first craft beer.
Well, first of all, it wasn't. I mean, Bill Owens, who was a good friend of mine, he had, Buffalo Bill's brewery, brew pub here in San Francisco. Fritz Maytag started Anchor Steam Brewery in 1965. 1965.
But I'm talking nationally distributed.
Well, yes.
Okay.
She's so humble.
I know.
Well, yeah. I mean,
I totally
That's
agree with you
awesome.
that there was
Yeah.
a regional play, and there were some really great regional beers like Anchor Steam, great example.
Yeah.
yep.
But
Sierra Nevada, of course.
yep, but it took them for quite a while for them to expand. But Boston beer, obviously, humble roots in Boston. From Bostonites, I don't know what you call yourselves.
Bostonians.
Bostonians.
Oh
Uh-oh.
man,
Or
Doug's
mass
watching
holes.
now,
Dude,
actually.
yeah.
No.
Doug's gonna kick my ass.
Oh, mass holes. That's
Massholes. I've heard that one.
I never heard that.
That's it. That's what all the New Yorkers call it. When people from Massachusetts go into go out to the Hamptons or something, right? Or whatever it is. They're driving like crap, and so
Yeah.
the New Yorkers call them massholes.
Oh, really? Is that a thing?
That's what I've heard.
Yeah.
We don't go to the Hamptons.
I figured.
Yeah.
Yeah. Why would you want to go
And
out there?
if people do from Boston, they're usually flying in their helicopters.
That's a flex.
Fortunately, I haven't been invited on that flight yet. But I will. I will someday, I'm sure.
So Sam Adams had started really locally there in Massachusetts, and then eventually was able to bring kind of this craft style of beer. I mean, that's what my dad drank. He would have. It was always Sam Adams.
That's
Boston
amazing.
Lager.
Well, your story really resonates with me. I know you're the sixth generation winemaker. Well, Jim Cook was the sixth consecutive oldest son to be a brewer in his family.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's really his business. I just helped him. Really. I
Yeah.
mean, without him, it would be nothing. And without me, it probably wouldn't have gotten as far as it did. Just because I'm from Boston and you can't take me down.
Well, you're,
But
you're also
it takes a
badass.
good. Yeah, you are, and it takes a good team, and that
Yeah.
team could be
Yeah.
a team of 2, and
Yeah.
then grow into 5 and 10, and so on. But
and that's what happened.
yeah.
Well, you
And
have
that was
great,
amazing.
You have great stories. I think too of just like I love the idea. Well, you coined it. You were the original Facebook. I would agree.
Right.
This whole idea back then, door to door. And I don't want to take please if you could speak that story because I thought it was awesome how you were really trying to educate people on the importance of ingredients.
I mean, that's it was pre-internet. It was 1985 when we launched. Patriots Day weekend, Boston Marathon going on. Like we launched, and we're standing there on the side of the road. Jim and I going, okay, where do we go now? What do we do now? And I'm like, all right, follow me. I've been to this bar and this bar and this bar because that's what I love to do. And he's like, okay, so off we went, and we have these cold packs in our briefcases, and these bottles of Samuel Adams that said sample brew on them, and we went bar to bar, door to door. But what we also had was the ingredients. And this is what I fell in love with, is the education piece of showing people how beer was made, good quality beer was made, and it's an ingredient story. And it was, we'd have jars of hops, which is nearest botanical relative to marijuana.
Yeah.
They give beer its bitterness. They're a flower, they're a spice. Then there's malted barley, and then there's corn maize, which is what all the other guys were using. So it was this yellow fizzy beer, Miller. Coors had just come when we started. So the press had this juxtaposition of these Coors trailers coming in, and Jim with his little trench coat trying to deliver beer on a dolly. It was really funny. Anyway, we just went door to door, and we'd show up, and I met Jim at Boston Consulting Group, brilliant place, and that's the world's thought leaders. Jim was a management consultant, 3 Harvard degrees. Jack Welch was one of his customers, clients from GE, like brilliant. And he knew manufacturing. But this was his whole thing. Like, he knew that he could make a better beer. And we did. I mean, he did it. And we went door to door. And the difference was what goes inside the bottle. And that's, to this day, 40 plus years later, that's what I talk about every day.
Yeah.
Because it clearly makes a difference.
What the raw ingredients are makes a huge difference.
It really
does. In the final product.
And there's shortcuts abound. And that's the difference between really good stuff and bad stuff. And, the more that I learned about distillation and how things are made, like, people will go long into the tail, which is a bad place to go because your liver doesn't process that stuff well. And you get overwhelmed by congeners and things that just don't belong.
Yeah.
And so you throw up. I was saying to Chris, I'm like, I drink way too much to make subpar products. And I do this daily, and I'm fine because it's clean, it's good, it's real, you're getting the heart of the spirit, and that's what people need to pay a little bit extra for monetarily, but they need to pay attention to. And the government doesn't allow us to tell them what's going in to their body. Like, everything else has a nutritional label.
Yeah.
Why doesn't alcohol?
What would you put on a whiskey nutritional label if you could, besides ingredients?
Is this really the end? Unbelievable. Find out next week.